Moments ago, House Republicans passed the strongest border security bill this country has ever seen. This bill secures the border from President Biden's record crossings, record carelessness, and record chaos. Securing the border is one of the top priorities, and it is the priorities of the leaders who are behind me. I do want to thank Mario Diaz-Balart, Tom McClintock, Jim Jordan, Mark Green, Mike McCall, Elise Stefanik, and Tom Emmer. I want to give a special thanks to Steve Scalise. Not only did he help pass this bill on the floor, but he has been working for 2 years to educate the members, leading Codels to the border and working with our task forces and our committees. And I want to thank every single member of this conference. This is not something easy to do. By passing H.R. 2, House Republicans have shown we're focused on addressing our nation's biggest challenges. By contrast, the White House has 2 years to plan for the end of Title 42. We all knew the deadline, but the White House produced no plan, missed the deadline, and bumbled into another crisis. Even President Biden, who has only been to the border one time in 50 years, says this: there is going to be chaos for a little while. Since the White House keeps missing deadlines, I want you to know how we did it. We identified the problem. Rather than ignoring it, we listened to the American people. And then we took action. Numerous members of our conference for the last 4 years have been traveling to the border, not just to meet with border agents, but meet with the elected officials. It didn't matter what party they were registered. To meet with local ranchers, landowners, businessmen and women. To meet with the people being affected day in and day out. To school board members, where their schools had to be closed because of the chases and the cars coming across. To the families that lost loved ones because of the fentanyl that's been coming across. I remember down with Juan Ciscomani with the new mayor, telling a story of his own daughter, calling her and telling her that she can't go outside, another car chase was coming by. This car chase didn't end in the manner we all wish it would. It killed a woman he told us about. She was on her way to her retirement dinner, where she had retiring from work of all those years to spend the time with her grandchildren, to travel the country, ended because the border was not secure. We even had our committees, when we took the majority, not to stay in Washington to gather all your information, but to travel to the border itself. If you're going to write a bill about the border, you ought to learn firsthand. Homeland, Judiciary. We talked to Border Patrol agents, heard the frustration in their voices, and saw the exhaustion in their faces. But the House Democrats, who even belonged to the committee, refused to go. One of the ranking members, Nadler, made fun of us going to it, said it didn't mean anything. I think you ought to look to the family members who've lost their children to fentanyl and tell them that it didn't mean anything. If they had attended, I believe they would have voted with us. You cannot listen to what we had heard and vote against this bill today. The do-nothing Democrats must not continue to repeat this pattern on the debt limit. Tomorrow will be the 100th day since I first sat down with the President on February 1st to identify a problem, to know the deadline would be coming. We all know that the deadline for default is June 1st. Why are we in this situation? Because inflation, Democrats added $6 trillion. They harmed every single family by bringing inflation to our country. And now 3 of the 4 largest bank failures in American history has happened just in a couple months. We watch people bringing home their paycheck. It doesn't go as far. We watch Democrats treat the exact same way. The House passed a plan to avoid the default. We cap spending, we grow the economy, and we responsibly raise the debt limit. And there's only 15 days to go. How has the president handled this? The exact same way he's handled the border. He ignores it and hopes it goes away. But President Biden and Senator Schumer are stuck on no. They have no plan, no proposed savings, and no clue. Apparently, President Biden doesn't want a deal. He wants a default. Mr. President, my message is very simple. Do not miss another deadline like you just missed on Title 42. Our country cannot afford it. The Republicans will always act responsibly and will also always look for solutions. With that, let me bring up our majority leader who's worked so hard to make this day come to fruition, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to our Speaker. How about this team? Once again, House Republicans came together to solve a major crisis facing our nation, a crisis that was created by President Biden's failures. President Biden walked in on his first day in office with a commitment to open up America's southern border. He took direct action that has opened up our southern border and started a flood that we have never seen before. Over 5 million people have come into our country illegally since Joe Biden took the oath of office. That's more people than the entire population of my home state of Louisiana that have come into this country illegally. And it's getting worse. Today, the day that we passed this important bill to secure America's border, the strongest bill that this Congress has ever passed, at a time when our border's never been less secure. And you had the Secretary of Homeland Security today, Secretary Mayorkas, said the border's not open. Well, Mr. Secretary, if 10,000 people coming across our border illegally is not open, I would hate to see what you think is an open border. This is a crisis that needs to be fixed. The House didn't sit around waiting on the Secretary or the President to do their job, even though they failed. We took action to protect every community in America that is now a border town. The devastation from our open border is affecting every community in America. Today in America, 300 young people will die from drug overdoses related to the fentanyl coming across our open southern border because of President Biden's failure. Tomorrow, another 300 young people will die. When is the president going to finally stand up and do something to stop those deaths? Do those deaths not matter to President Biden? They matter to us. And we took action to do something about it. It's long past time the Senate do something to address this crisis. It's long past time for President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas to do something to address this crisis. If they're going to continue to fail the American people, we're not going to stop working for those families who are struggling under the weight of the devastation of these failed policies. And the man who helped us get the votes to pass this critically important bill for the American people is our whip, Mr. Tom Emmer.
Thank you, Steve. More migrants have died at our southern border in the last 12 months than at any 12-month period in the history of this country. Cartels are trafficking children and smuggling deadly fentanyl into our communities. Border Patrol has apprehended nearly 200 illegal crossers who are on the terrorist watch list. Border Patrol agents are exhausted and being pulled off the front lines with morale at an all-time low. And all of this was happening before Title 42 was set to expire. In the last few days, we've gotten a glimpse at what our southern border will look like if Biden's open borders agenda continues. 10,000 crossings per day, as the majority leader just said, pure chaos in the speaker's comments, the president's words himself, pure chaos, all because Joe Biden and his administration has let the world know our borders are open. And make no mistake, it is intentional and it is not humane. But today, Kevin McCarthy and House Republicans have stepped up to provide another common sense solution where Joe Biden and the Democrats have failed. After 2 years of intentional disregard from the White House, House Republicans passed legislation that builds the border wall, strengthens asylum laws, ends Biden's mass parole programs, and humanely addresses the horrific child trafficking business at our southern border. This bill is simple. It disincentivizes illegal immigration and reinstates the policies that were working before Joe Biden got in the Oval Office and let his self-made border crisis get out of hand. It's a slap in the face to our border communities, to law-abiding citizens, and to legal immigrants that the Biden White House and Schumer Senate are already set in their opposition to this bill. Their obstruction means innocent children will continue to be inhumanely subjected to sex trafficking and child labor. Legitimate cases of asylum will continue to be stifled in an overrun system. And illegal immigration will continue to be incentivized while legal immigrants wait years to become citizens the right way. It might not be great optics for a Democrat Party that has embraced illegal immigration and total lawlessness as part of their platform. But it is the humane thing for Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer to do to address the crisis head on and make sure the Border Act becomes law. Migrant lives and the safety of American communities depend on it. And with that, our conference chair, Elise Stefanik.
Thank you, Tom. I am so honored to stand here with my House Republican colleagues. Yet again, the mainstream media underestimated this House Republican majority. And yet again, House Republicans delivered results for the American people with the passage of the Secure the Border Act, the strongest border bill in the history of the United States Congress. This bill was one of our key pillars of our commitment to America. Since day one, when Joe Biden was sworn into office, Joe Biden's policies have caused this catastrophic border crisis. And it's not just a border crisis. It's a national security crisis, an economic crisis, a crime crisis, and a humanitarian crisis. And the American people know that Joe Biden's failed open border policies have turned every district into a border district and every state into a border state. In my home district in upstate New York in the North Country, we've seen an over 800% increase in illegal crossings in the Swanton sector on the northern border just in the last year. Border Patrol officers who I represent have been transferred over and over again to our southern border to deal with the unprecedented surge of illegal crossings. Fentanyl overdoses ravage communities across this country in each and every one of our districts. House Republicans Secure the Border Act will end the Biden border crisis by finishing the wall, advancing border technology, supporting our brave Border Patrol officers, ending catch and release, and fulfilling our commitment to America, a nation that is safe. And one of the leaders for years, for decades on this issue, I'm honored to introduce my colleague, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me start by quoting the President's actual SAP veto message on H.R. 2. He claims that the administration's approach to border strategy is, quote, safe, orderly, and humane. You know, one wouldn't really have to be delusional to believe that almost 300 Americans dying every single day due to fentanyl, mostly coming from the southern border, is safe. Frankly, one would have to be severely out of touch with reality to relinquish control of the southern border to those narco-terrorist cartels that are now the ones who determine who comes in to the southern border. And one would have to be really callous to say that the death of 900 migrants and nearly 90,000 children, minors, lost and trafficked is humane. That's not humane. That's insane. Since the Biden administration and, frankly, the Democrats, since they've totally abdicated their responsibility to uphold our national security and protect the American people, I am so proud that the House Republicans, once again, have stepped up. H.R. 2 secures the borders. It provides much-needed support to our brave heroes, the men and women, the officers of the CBP. It protects children, those exploited children that even the New York Times has stated are being exploited. It protects them from exploitation and human trafficking.
It defunds the narco-terrorist, multi-billion-dollar cartels that are now the ones who decide who comes in through the southern border and who are running the southern border. It streamlines our broken asylum system that is hurting so many, including those who have legitimate claims for asylum. And I'm so proud, it reestablishes the rule of law. The rule of law. I am so proud of this Republican conference. En la carta oficial que el presidente sacó hoy, esta semana, en su oposición a esta ley, el presidente de la administración dice que la situación en la frontera está segura, organizada y humana. Eso lo puso por escrito la administración. O sea, francamente hay que estar severamente desconectado de la realidad para decir que los casi 300 norteamericanos, jóvenes que mueren todos los días, eso es porque hay una frontera segura, organizada y humana. Que la muerte de los 900 inmigrantes, el número más grande de la historia de los Estados Unidos, que fallecieron el año pasado, este año, y 90,000 niños que están siendo abusados y traficados, que eso es seguro, organizado y humano. Y cederle el control de la frontera sur a los narcocarteles, que son los que deciden ahora quién entra y quién sale y por qué precio. Que de alguna forma eso es seguro, organizado y humano. No. Esta ley sí es humana. Desafortunadamente el presidente y los demócratas rehúsan defender la seguridad nacional de los Estados Unidos y proteger al pueblo norteamericano. Y por eso estoy tan orgulloso que hoy los republicanos de la Cámara tomaron acción y acción seria y positiva. Esta ley fortalece la seguridad de nuestra frontera. Brinda apoyo necesario a nuestros agentes oficiales en la frontera. Protege a los niños, a las niñas, a las mujeres que están siendo abusadas en este proceso. Mejora nuestro sistema de asilo. Y muy importante, restablece el Estado de Derecho, que es la razón por la cual todo inmigrante que lleva generaciones o que está tratando de llegar ahora, viene a este país. Restablece el Estado de Derecho. It is my privilege to introduce a man who, if anybody has any doubt, the definition of a workhorse, of a man who is keen and smart and never stops working. What a privilege it is to introduce my colleague, Mr. McClintock.
Thank you. You know, we tried to do this a few years ago with a much larger majority, and we failed. The difference this time was the Republican leadership, starting with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and, of course, Chairman Jim Jordan and the rest of the team that wouldn't take no for an answer, that kept everybody talking, kept everybody together, ultimately to reach a common conclusion to pass this historic legislation with a much slender majority. You know, our borders were secure on Inauguration Day. The Remain in Mexico policy had slowed illegal immigration to a trickle. The border wall was nearing completion. ICE was actually enforcing court-ordered deportations. And yet that very afternoon, Joe Biden reversed all of these policies and initiated the largest illegal mass migration in history. And, you know, I've never understood how our schools are made better by packing classrooms with non-English speaking students, or how our hospitals are made more accessible by flooding our emergency rooms with illegals demanding uncompensated care, or how our communities are made safer by introducing criminal cartels and flooding them with fentanyl, or how working families are helped by flooding the labor market with cheap illegal labor, or how our social safety net is strengthened by adding millions of impoverished dependent aliens to it. This measure restores the policies that secured our border and makes it harder for future presidents to refuse to enforce the law. You know, without enforcing our immigration laws, we have no borders. And if we have no borders, we have no country. History warns us that countries that either cannot or will not secure their borders simply aren't around very long. Now the Senate needs to act. And if it doesn't, then ultimately the American people need to decide how far down this road they want to continue, because this will continue until the people responsible for these policies are removed from office. And I thank all of you, and I'm very pleased to introduce Representative Juan Ciscomani of Arizona's 6th District, who did yeoman work in keeping the sides together and bringing us together. So thank you.
I stand here today as a proud product of the American dream. I became a United States citizen in 2006, and today, 17 years later, I can stand before you as a member of the United States Congress. I also stand here as a representative of southeastern Arizona. What's happening at the border is not part of the American dream my family pursued, and thousands of other families also continue to pursue today. We've seen babies abandoned in rivers, migrants dying in deserts, high-speed car chases through neighborhoods, and 85,000 children disappear after being released from HHS custody. We have a border crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and on the front lines are our border communities. Americans have been failed by the government designed to protect them. While our country suffers because of this administration's inaction, House Republicans have passed a solution. H.R. 2 gives our agents and officers the resources they desperately need, closes loopholes in an abused asylum system, and it protects innocent children from harm. This last part was very important to me from the get-go. I'm a dad of 6. My kids' ages range from 4 to 14. I can't help it but look at these kids and think of my own kids, and think of when my family brought me here as a young boy as well, and what I was thinking and what I was going through. This bill is a step away from the chaos we are seeing and a step closer to helping others achieve the American dream that I've been so blessed to live. Estoy aquí como un orgulloso producto del sueño americano. Me convertí en ciudadano americano en el 2006 y hoy, 17 años después, estoy aquí frente a ustedes como miembro del Congreso de Estados Unidos. También estoy aquí como representante del sureste de Arizona. Lo que está ocurriendo en la frontera no es parte del sueño americano. Para mi familia no es parte del sueño americano que mi familia vino a buscar y que otras miles de familias también están viniendo a buscar. Hemos visto bebés abandonados en ríos, emigrantes que mueren en el desierto y persecuciones de autos por vecindarios. Y 85,000 menores de edad han desaparecido después de haber sido liberados de la custodia del Departamento de Salud y Servicios Humanos de Estados Unidos. Tenemos una crisis en la frontera. Tenemos una crisis humanitaria. Y las líneas de fuego son nuestras comunidades de la frontera. El gobierno le ha fallado a los estadounidenses en vez de protegerlos. Mientras nuestro país sufre por la falta de acción de esta administración, los republicanos de la Cámara de Representantes hemos pasado una solución. La ley H.R. 2 brinda a nuestros agentes y oficiales los recursos necesarios que desesperadamente necesitan. También cierra los hoyos del sistema de asilo que han estropeado y protegen muy bien a los niños inocentes de cualquier edad. Este proyecto de ley es un paso fuera del caos que estamos viviendo y es un paso más cerca hacia ayudar a alcanzar a todos los demás el sueño americano que yo he tenido la oportunidad de vivir. Muchas gracias. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce one of the leaders that have made this possible, and that is Chairman Mike McCall. Sir?
Thank you. I want to thank the Speaker for doing something that no other speaker in the history of this Congress has done, and that's passing the strongest border security package. I want to thank you personally. Thank you, sir. Because he brings us together. And I want to thank leadership, the chairman involved. It's a real team effort to get here. You know, I've been dealing with this issue for quite some time. I was a federal prosecutor, U.S. attorney in Texas on the border, and it was bad. I was chairman of Homeland Security Committee, and we passed border bills, but I've never seen the border like it is today. It is absolutely out of control. Even the chief of the Border Patrol said we have lost operational control, and we lost it to the drug cartels. They are on our border, and nobody sees it more than my Texas brethren and women behind me who bear the brunt of this. My legislature appropriated $4.5 billion just this term to deal with a federal responsibility. And you know, the sad thing is it didn't have to happen. It was a self-inflicted wound. We are on the path to securing this border under the previous administration. But what did this Biden administration do? On day one, with a stroke of a pen, rescind the migrant protection protocols, remain in Mexico, which means you have to remain in Mexico pending your asylum. When they rescinded that, the cartels aren't stupid. They understood. Hey, it's open for business. Green lights on, come on in. And guess what they did? And they knew if they could get people in, that catch and release would apply. 5 million encounters, 5 million people in this country in the shadows, no legal status. What in the world are we going to do with 5 million people? And the saddest thing is that it's the children that die on the way. 35% get raped on the dangerous journey. These stash houses, Mayorkas is guilty of child abuse, in my opinion. By not vetting the sponsors of the parents, supposedly, or sponsors of these children, allowing 10 to 20, 30 kids to go to a stash house, then to become victims of sex trafficking, child slavery, forcing them into a criminal network and a criminal enterprise. The 100,000 deaths of young people to fentanyls pouring, coming from China, going through Mexico, coming into the United States. My children have been to 5 funerals. Friends, dear friends, who took what they thought was Xanax or ADD medication, and they never woke up. This is real. That's more than what we lost in Vietnam over 2 decades. It's just unacceptable. But today, we're bringing solutions as Republicans. You know, the first bill I ever introduced in Congress 20 years ago was to end catch and release. I am so proud of this day because this Republican majority got it done. And we're going to end this policy. We're going to return to the policies that worked and stop this nightmare that's happening all across this country. So I want to now turn it over to a great leader, chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Worked very, very hard together. Had a markup till 3 o'clock in the morning. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman McCall, for that introduction and your friendship and mentorship. A lot of people in this room made the prediction that when we elected our Speaker, this group of Republicans would have a hard time coming together. That the conflict that happened in that episode would divide us so much that we'd get nothing done. Well, 87,000 IRS agents, gone. An energy bill that will turn back on American energy, done. A debt ceiling, responsibly increased. And now, and many, many other things, and now, the most conservative, strongest border security bill in the history of the Congress. Yeah, sometimes conflict can divide, but in this case, it made us one team. and the work that has happened to make this bill a reality today on the floor, there are tons of people to thank. It starts with the leader and the speaker doing amazing work, mentoring all of us that were out on the front lines. It goes to my committee, the men and women in that committee who busted their butts to work together to get it done, and our staffs. I have to thank the staff of the committee for doing an amazing job. And the leader and the speaker's staff too. But most of all, I want to thank the men and women of the Customs and Border Protection, the blue and the green, who are out there serving this great nation, sacrificing themselves under horrible conditions brought on them by the decisions of this president and secretary. And make no mistake about it, every American is at risk. You got children? How about that little baby in a VRBO in Florida, crawling around on the floor, that died by encountering fentanyl left by the previous renter? If you have children and you're going to a hotel, think about that. And thank Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas. Every American is at risk with this open border, and we have had it. The American people have had it, and we have responded with a great bill. And I ask the senators, as the wave of people come across the southern border and cities are declaring states of emergency, to think about it. You say you're going to not support this bill? Think about it. Americans are suffering. Americans are dying. Do something. Vote to send this bill to the President of the United States. And let's have that President, who has ignored this speaker on the debt ceiling, ignored the border, ignored the economy, ignored the veterans who sacrificed so much in Afghanistan and walked away. Let's get him to the table and do something for this country for once. Pass this bill, secure our border, and save this great country. I will be followed by one of the greats, my mentor, Jim Jordan.
So I didn't know I was last till a few minutes ago, but I'll just say this. On January 3rd, I gave a nominating speech for the Speaker. And I said in that speech, I think our task this Congress is pretty straightforward. Pass the bills to fix the problems, rein in the crazy spending, and do our oversight, do our constitutional duty. And this Congress, we're doing that. House Republicans are doing. We're doing the oversight. We passed the debt ceiling bill, as Chairman Green just mentioned, that would actually get control of the crazy spending. And contrary to what Punchbowl reported this morning, we are passing the bills to fix the problems. We are passing the legislation that we promised the American people we would do. We said we would get rid of 87,000 IRS agents. We did. We said we'd pass an energy bill that made us energy independent. We did. We said we'd pass a parental rights bill. We did. And we said we'd pass immigration enforcement, border security bill. And we did today. I always say we make this job way too complicated. It's really pretty basic. What did you tell the voters you were going to do when you put your name on the ballot and you ran for office? If they elect you, go do what you said. And House Republicans, under the leadership of Speaker McCarthy, are doing exactly that. And the key is we have to continue that for the rest of this Congress and make the American people understand we are representing them at this critical time in American history. With that, I yield back to the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
The House Republicans continue to offer solutions. We all knew this date was going to be here, and the White House ignored it. We will not ignore the problems, and we'll continue to work for the American public. That was our commitment to America. It's the commitment we're keeping. With that, let's open up for questions. Yes, Jake.
Could you give us your sense on where the talks are on the debt ceiling?
We just passed H.R. 2, and you want to talk debt ceiling. Okay. Well, that's a good question because it's another issue. It's another issue that the president ignored. The staff has met the last 2 days. We think it's productive for the staff to meet again. I have not seen from there a seriousness of the White House that they want to deal. It seems like they want to default more than they want to deal. Yes. The White House didn't cancel the meeting. All of the leaders decided it's probably in the best of our interest to let the staff meet again before we get back together.
There's some
some sort of say that's a positive development, can you help us understand why the delay is that positive?
It's not a delay. I think from numerous different things. One, couldn't be there tomorrow. I don't think there's enough progress for the leaders to get back together. I don't know having certain ones in the room that's even productive. I think just as I sat down with the president February 1st, look, we want to be responsible, we want to be sensible. He ignored us now for 100 days. He thought this problem would go away like the border. We didn't want to sit back, just like with the border, so we went to work and we raised the debt ceiling, because we're the only people that can guarantee that we won't hit default because we've raised it. The Senate has done nothing. They've done nothing with the border. They've done nothing with this. They've done nothing with trying to protect children in their schools with a Parents' Bill of Rights. What have they done about fentanyl? I mean, issue after issue after issue, they continue to ignore them, and we won't. Yes.
Just following up on that, do you expect that there will be?
I expect there'll be a meeting next week, yeah.
And then just secondly, on immigration, you know, Senators Sinema and Tillis say that your bill is a good starting point, but they don't think there are 60 votes for it. That being said, they have, at least to deal with the Title 42 expiration, have a bipartisan bill that could at least extend that authority for the next 2 years. They say they've been talking to members here in the House. Is that something you're open to?
Look, we once again just passed a bill. The Senate has done nothing, but I'm thankful that you have bipartisan work over in the Senate, that they're willing to do something on this. I mean, I think Senator Sinema said that the president has ignored this for 2 years. She sees it every day in her state. And just like any other bill, we will pass a bill, the Senate could pass a bill, and we could go to conference and see what we can actually solve. Yes.
So let me understand. You obviously pushed a long time for these meetings with the president.
Mm-hmm.
So now you said all 4 members and the president, the White House Council meeting, we're still in the meeting here. If you were pushing so long for these negotiations and things aren't far enough along in these negotiations for the 5 of you to get together, doesn't that say that that wasn't what needed to happen? I mean, that this could have been, it could have worked out with talks behind the scenes to start.
How do you take something that's so simple and try to make it complicated? We simply...
But you argued for...
Yeah, for 100 days.
You had a meeting the other day.
Yeah.
But now there's not going to be a meeting tomorrow. That doesn't seem too square with what the call was for 97.
You're trying to make news out of nothing. So we simply had staff meet. They haven't made progress. We were going to meet on Friday. One of the leaders couldn't be there. They have a funeral they have to attend. So we didn't think it was going to be productive. So we thought, let's meet next week. But you can spin it any way you want. I think the rest of America will understand what it is. Yes.
Are you comfortable with your party's leading presidential candidate not calling Putin a war criminal and not taking sides in Russia versus Ukraine?
What are you referring to?
Trump last night, he would not.
Look, I think we have been very clear about the atrocities that Russia and Putin have presented to this world. I think we've been very clear in our votes as well. So I think we lead with exactly what we've been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A few questions. There was an issue some Republican members had with the bill regarding designating cartels as terrorist groups. They cited that it would allow migrants to claim asylum more easily. Was there a way that both concerns could have been addressed? And the second question is, if the House doesn't get that document they subpoenaed the FBI for regarding Biden allegedly taking a bribe to a foreign official, will the House vote to hold Director Wray in contempt of Congress? And finally, what was your reaction to Congresswoman Slade having an anti-Israel ban on the Senate side, courtesy of Senator Sanders?
You get them all worked in. Pretty good. I'll just work in reverse order. I think Tlaib has mentioned many times before, it almost feels like there's anti-Semitism, and I will never allow that to happen in this body or on this floor. I've watched members on the other side of the aisle say that time and again, and we will always stand up against that no matter where it is. I just came back from a bipartisan group of members going to the 75th anniversary of Israel. When Israel was created, 11 minutes later, America recognized them. And I think the world is a better place for it. I do not think what Tlaib wanted to do should have happened in this chambers. Unfortunately, you've got a senator on the other side that I guess agrees with her and against the rest of the world. Your other question was about a subpoena to the FBI. There are checks and balances, and there is oversight. Congress has a right to have that knowledge, and I will have a conversation with Director Wray about that and make sure that happens. Your last question was about cartels. Yes, we debate all different parts, and the one thing that I wanted to do is to have an opportunity to truly focus on the cartels, because if any of you have spent time at the border, you will find we do not have operational control. Juan Ciscomani had to leave, but in his district is Tucson. The Sinaloa cartels control Tucson, Arizona. If you go to Tucson, Arizona, you cannot cross the border without paying the Sinaloa. One individual tried to do it on his own. He wasn't captured by our border agents. He was captured by the cartel, beaten, thrown in the back of the car, never found again. If you cross on that area, every single person is dressed the same. They have a camouflage outfit on. Their shoes have rug on the bottom. It is the #1 places of getaways. 71% of people across there are single males. They don't run up to our border agents, they run from them. We actually have to, because it's a big territory, every single day we risk the lives of our American people in the military and on the borders, putting helicopters up trying to rescue people up on the cliffs many times, each and every day. The real challenge here as well is we have to do a lot of this aerial. When the numbers continued to peak, you know what the administration did? They cut the number of balloons that we had, that we could count the number of people that were coming over illegally. So they want to tell you that the numbers are down when it's only growing more. You catch fentanyl time and again from these individuals. So yeah, spend a little time there. You'll be able to see. Yes, ma'am.
Speaker McCarthy, you guys want to cut about $130 billion from the budget. If you take out defense, if you take out DHS, if you take out Veterans Affairs, how are you going to cut that much money from the remaining pie?
Okay, so what you're talking about is in the debt ceiling, we asked that we go back to what we were spending 5 months ago. 5 months ago, we were spending a lot of money. And what happens is...
If you do all those cuts with a smaller portion of the budget.
Okay, let me finish my answer. Okay, so we want to go back to what we were spending 5 months ago. People across the country elect their representatives. What we do is once we set the baseline, we go forward and we decide, Republicans and Democrats, what our priorities. It's the exact same thing that every single American family does. For 21 straight years, we have spent more than we brought in. The Democrats added $6 trillion that brought us inflation, that made us more dependent on China. This won't balance the budget by any means. This won't harm people in any areas. What we'll do is find where the waste is at. You're talking $131 billion, but you know what I hear on the other side? That they have no place that they can cut. The first place, you know where I would go? Since the pandemic's over, since we moved the legislation, even the World Health Organization says it's over. We have $50 to $60 billion right there of the 131 that has been appropriated, but for 2 years has sat there. What if you bring that back to the taxpayers? That's just a start. You're going to tell me you can't find the inefficiencies in government? Because all the Democrats have done, they're inflation-bound Democrats, is spend more money and harm this entire country. We know we can do it together. Did I give you a question? Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
Staff level meetings productive right now? Like, have they been productive and that's why you're giving them more time? Or have they not been productive and that's why?
Look, we have a short time period. If this were staff meetings happening on February 1st, I'd call them productive. When you're sitting here with a few 15 days to go, it really seems to me that the president finally felt the pressure for 100 days of not having a meeting with me. For even though that he sat and met with us on February 1st and told not just myself but all of you in his tweet that we were going to meet again and talk about this. That he told us the next day at the prayer breakfast when he sat next to me and grabbed my forearms, we're going to meet. When he walked up before all the members of Congress at the prayer breakfast and says, we're going to get this solved and meet together. Then change his mind and keep changing every day what somebody had to do until we would pass the bill. I don't think they're that productive. What I truly believe here, looking at the actions of this president, he doesn't want a deal. He wants a default. And the American people do not deserve that. That's why the Republicans actually passed a bill that raised the debt limit in a responsible way, can curb inflation and grow our economy. So it won't be a question. I mean, the question you have right now is, if the president's take that he wants to do that he can't pass, you're just going to go down and still have more inflation, have a market that continues to drop, or if you pass a bill that limits, saves, and grows, once it passes, our economy is going to grow. We're going to be less dependent. Individuals are going to have more money that they can keep. The energy prices are going to come down. We're going to cut the red tape so we could build things in America again. That's the question that you have. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.